Welcome back, everybody, to the usually Patreon members only bonus show, but today will be available to everybody so that anyone on YouTube can check out what the bonus content looks like, what you would get if you went to patreon.com/Luke Beasley and supported the show. Link in the description. Lots of stories to dive into. Quickly before we do though, what you get if you go to patreon.com/Luke Beasley, become a member, is the full video version of the show every single day, Monday through Friday, and then a bonus show on Saturdays. So if you're just someone who watches my clips as they get uploaded to YouTube, you're at the mercy of whenever that clip in the scheduling of different uploads comes out and when you're able to get to it. But what's so cool about being a member is the entire show gets sent to you, 8-10 stories in full show form, and so you can just listen to them back to back much earlier than anyone else is able to, as well as, again, the Saturday bonus show. Plus, you're supporting independent media, which is absolutely wonderful. But with all that being said, let's jump into the content of today's show. The first story is Ali Velshi on MSNBC brought a guest on who broke down some interesting figures, numbers, statistics on the, as he calls it, poor and low wealth voters and how much of a sway they can have in these elections. But the Democratic Party doesn't seem to invest and chase after those voters as much as they should. And he kind of compares it to suburban vote. Maybe they should focus a little more on these poor and low wealth voters than so much on suburban voters. So take a look at this and then we'll discuss.
You and I had a great conversation yesterday about the importance of poor and low-wage people, not just to this election in Georgia, but generally speaking in the midterm elections, particularly in the South.
Exactly right, Al, and that's why we're here, because listen at some data that you and I talked about. Those persons making under $30,000 a year voted 12-point highest for Democrats according to exit polls. Those making under $50,000 a year voted about 5% higher. There's not a state in this country where poor and low wage voters do not have at least 30% of the electorate. And in every state where the margin of victory is within 3%, poor and low wealth voters have over 40% of the electorate. So you can't win by ignoring poor and low wealth votes. In Georgia, for instance, 1.2 million people here are uninsured. 1.9 million workers make less than $15 an hour. That's 47% of the workforce. You have to speak to them. 1 million voters in Georgia poor and low wealth voters who were eligible did not vote, but the margin of victory in 2020, for instance, for the presidency was only 150,000 votes. North Carolina in 2020, 1 million poor and low wealth voters who were eligible to vote didn't vote. The margin of victory was only 70,000. In Wisconsin, 645,000 poor and low wealth voters didn't vote in 2020, but the margin of victory was only 20,000. In Arizona, in 2020, for instance, the number of poor and low income voters who didn't vote was 756,000, and the margin of victory was only 10,000 votes. So you cannot ignore, and that's one of the things we're saying to Democrats and progressives, stop chasing the elusive suburban vote, but focus clearly and intensely on poor and low wealth voters who tend to, when they vote progressive if they're taught.
Absolutely. I think that's a great message, because when you look at the policies of the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party, and think about which party is actually looking out for the interest of poor and low wealth or low income, whatever the word you want to use, voters. Now, neither party is good enough, 100%, but it's no competition. The Democratic Party really is the only one that has policies that significantly improve the lives of working Americans. And so that needs to be clear, both hopefully in the minds of the voters, but the only way that you do that is by the Democratic Party itself having that clear in their mind, and that being their mission of messaging and then also fighting for, once they get the power, those policies. Because I think you can build a coalition that would be unstoppable if you were good enough at turning out those working voter, the working voter population's vote, right? It really would make a huge difference in so many of these elections. And I don't think the Democratic Party does nearly a good enough job of making that clear and making that their mission. And they really do spend a lot of time on the suburban vote and all these things. Next story, Alex Jones is starting a new whiskey brand, and he's going to call it Conspiracy. From Whiskey Raiders, the Whiskey Raiders publication. In whiskey news we really didn't see coming this week, it appears that controversial Alex Jones is set to release his own whiskey brand in the weeks ahead. Alex Jones, who hosts a variety of far-right media productions promoting conspiracy theories, has been in the news recently. Notably, this is thanks to a series of monumental judgments against him, a series of defeats in widely publicized defamation cases related to the Sandy Hook school shooting have left the controversial figure with nearly $1 billion owed to various parties in damages. Seemingly unable or unwilling to decouple himself from alternative news and conspiracy theories, we're now seeing reports that Jones is planning a whiskey brand release. The whiskey could be available online as soon as December 2022, per industry journalist Fred Minnick. And here's a tweet from Fred Minnick. This just in, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones is starting a bourbon called Conspiracy, to which the TTB gave federal label approval 2 weeks ago. Thoughts? So, I mean, in lighthearted analysis, you can say, haha, funny. This is one of the ways he's going to try to make back the money that hopefully he'll have to pay to the families of Sandy Hook. But in a scary way, the more that people like him lean into these terms that are supposed to be derogatory, the harder it is to pull people out, right? Because if you say, I'm worried, let's say you're talking to a friend, I'm worried that you're getting into kind of conspiracy theorist type thinking. If they've been taught to think, heck yeah, I buy conspiracy bourbon, I love conspiracy theorists, it's really hard to quickly, with kind of a loaded term, make them recognize maybe there's something to be scared about. Now let's dive into specifics. But that's what he seems to be trying to do. And we've seen the same thing on the issue of Christian nationalism or nationalism generally. And people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are saying, absolutely, we should be Christian nationalists, 100%. They're just leaning into it. So it's harder to make clear that the essence of what they are doing is bad for the people following them if the people following them have already bought into the label itself. So interesting dynamic there. John Cornyn, in a different story, his Twitter account tweeted on Thanksgiving, Happy Thanksgiving, from Heidi and Ted. What? So let me show you the tweet, and you could probably assume what happened, but I'll explain it in a sec. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Happy Thanksgiving, Heidi and Ted. Now, why did he say Heidi and Ted? That is Ted Cruz, and Heidi is the name of Ted Cruz's wife. Well, as was highlighted down, okay, that tweet must be gone, but a bunch of people were confused, and someone clarified that apparently John Cornyn and his fellow Texas Senator Ted Cruz have the same social media team. And so they must have created that formatted message for Ted Cruz and accidentally tweeted it off of John Cornyn's account, which is so funny and shows you that we know this, but these messages that are supposed to seem so personal and, oh, Merry Christmas from the Cruz family or whatever, are absolutely not that, which again, not surprising, but just funny to see a mistake like that. And as you just saw there, the tweet's still up. They didn't delete it. It's very strange. I wonder if they've even noticed the mistake. Next story, Elon Musk is just falling apart in his management of Twitter. And as you guys are aware, he started saying that and rolled out a plan where the blue check mark that was supposed to be verifying the individual's identity for the purposes of more notable individuals who would be, people would try to imitate them or try to be, forgetting the exact word on this for some reason, brain fart, but impersonate, there we go. Impersonated, notable individuals, if people have the opportunity, will get themselves impersonated by random people. And so because of that, you have these things on, Instagram and Twitter and other platforms, verification. And if you're verified, we know, okay, that's the actual Elon Musk or the actual Barack Obama or whoever it is. Well, to make more money, Elon Musk rolled out the plan to have an $8 per month charge for anyone who wants that check mark, and then you're good to go, regardless of any notoriety or anything like that. And that led to a whole thing where all these verified accounts were getting created about companies and individuals saying things, that those people weren't actually saying. Well, now he's fixing it. Now he's going to have different types of check marks. Sorry for the delay. This is his Twitter account. We're tentatively launching verified on Friday next week. Gold check for companies, gray check for government, blue for individual, celebrity or not, and all verified accounts will be manually authenticated before check activates. Painful, but necessary. So instead of how it was before, where for free, if you were notable enough or an entity, a company that was notable enough, you could get verified, and it was one meaning. Whatever this is, whether it's a company or a person, is verified by Twitter and is who they say they are, and for some reason they're notable. Now there's gonna be different colors of check marks that mean different things, just to try to scrape $8 out of a few people who really want that blue check mark. Very interesting, and it's just really not going well. Mike Pence is going to get questioned, or the Justice Department wants to question Mike Pence in regard and in relation to the investigations that are going on federally into Donald Trump. As the New York Times writes here, the Justice Department is seeking to question former Vice President Mike Pence as a witness in connection with its criminal investigation into former President Donald J. Trump's efforts to stay in power after he lost the 2020 election, according to two people familiar with the matter. Mr. Pence, according to people familiar with his thinking, is open to considering the request, recognizing that the Justice Department's criminal investigation is different from the inquiry by the House January 6th committee, whose overtures he has flatly rejected. Complicating the situation is whether Mr. Trump would try to invoke executive privilege to stop him or limit his testimony, a step that he has taken with limited success so far with other former officials. That would be interesting, because as the article goes on to highlight, Pence was there in critical moments that would indicate whether or not Trump did indeed commit certain crimes. Whether Trump would be able to successfully invoke executive privilege to prevent Mike Pence from having to testify or get questioned is to be seen. But I think Pence should absolutely be questioned if we're trying to seriously understand if Trump committed these crimes and get him on them. Then someone like Mike Pence is absolutely crucial to that knowledge. So we'll see how that turns out. Herschel Walker has challenged MSNBC host Joy Reid to a debate. Because his last one went so well. Let's look at him saying this initially, and then we'll see Joy Reid's response.
People to stand on television or on air and say things like that is disgusting. And, at the same time, I love to debate Joy Reid. Senator Warnock, he's a slick talker, smooth dresser guy. But in that debate, I took him to school because he found out a lot of things he didn't know. And I can do the same thing with Joy Reid any time of the day. I think people to sit on TV and to talk is easy to talk, but I've been a man that have worked my whole life. I've built companies. I've signed in front of a paycheck. They've never done any of that. They don't know how to do it. I do. And I said, any day of the week she want to debate, she can show up here and I debate her as well. On any subject, she come up with the subject and let's go at it.
Obviously, he doesn't actually intend on doing this. He wouldn't even debate Warnock more than one time. There was supposed to be, or the Warnock campaign was pushing for, and a lot of times there are more debates than just one, but Walker refused. And so you saw that time where the second debate that was scheduled, Warnock showed up and the third party candidate showed up, but Walker didn't. And so clearly he's not confident in his debating abilities despite his posturing. Well, here was Joy Reid playing this on her show and then responding.
And at the same time, I love to debate Joy Reid. Senator Warnock, He's a slick talker, smooth dresser guy. But in that debate, I took him to school because he found out a lot of things he didn't know. And I can do the same thing with Joy Reid any time of the day. I think people to sit on TV and to talk is easy to talk. But I've been a man that have worked my whole life. I've built companies. I've signed in front of a paycheck. They've never done any of that. They've never done any of that. They don't know how to do it. I do. And I said, any day of the week she want to debate, she can show up here and I debate her as well. On any subject, she come up with the subject and let's go at it.
Okay, Herschel, come on. It ain't but a short walk. No, seriously. We've reached out to your team. We will have you on the Readout any day, and we can debate. Just tell us when. But I do want to make one thing clear, Herschel. You can't bring your friends. You see your little friends there? You can't bring them. You have to do this debate on your own. But come on. The doors of the church are open, like the pastors say.
Love it.
And you
absolutely love it. And there she highlights exactly what I was saying, that her team reached out to his campaign. Of course, this is not going to get scheduled. Now, if it did, it would be awesome to watch because Joy Reid could run circles around Herschel Walker. But why would he risk getting humiliated right before his election when he knows he has no ability to debate or communicate in these types of ways? And so he would never take that on. But I wish it would happen because it would be hilarious. This is really strange. A plane flew over a Jaguars NFL game with a Confederate flag. Take a look at this. And it says, "Put monuments back." Put monuments back. An airplane carrying the banner flew over the Jaguars stadium before their game Sunday. The city had taken down a monument of a Confederate soldier 2 years ago, but has not removed others. So this is the thing, and then we'll look at Ron DeSantis because this happened. Did it? I don't even know. No, it didn't. Who knows? Is Jackson? I don't know where these teams are, people. But he gets asked about this, and we'll look at his response. But before we do, the discussion around these Confederate flags is just so strange because people insist that, no, I'm flying it because Southern heritage, or I'm flying it because we can't erase our history. What are you talking about? You can learn history, you can understand, you can be informed on history without celebrating it. And flying the flag of a regime or a side of a war that was fighting to keep slavery is not you just understanding or advocating for the importance of learning history. No, it's you celebrating that part of history, which is horrible. It would be the same as statues of Nazi party type things in Germany. We've talked about this before. Why would you put statues of Hitler or something? And you wouldn't, because it's a part of their history, but it's a bad part, a horrible part, a vile part, so they don't celebrate it, but they learn about it. So for us, one of the dark parts of our history, we can learn about, we should learn about, but we don't need to celebrate. And that's exactly what people have a really hard time understanding with the monuments and the flags and all this. Well, here's DeSantis getting asked about this.
You know what I'm concerned about? I'm concerned about people in the media trying to manufacture division all the time. I'm concerned when people in the media, with all due respect, I'm concerned when people in the media take some jabroni that nobody cares about and will try to elevate them and make them some type of celebrity. That is wrong. And so I think what you've seen in the state of Florida is this is a state where everybody can succeed. You know what I'm...
So he just kind of deflects and says, that's not what I'm concerned about. Why is it so hard not just to say, listen, I don't think that's the most important thing. It sounds like one-off event that one person did, but I obviously condemn anyone celebrating the Confederacy, and let's move on to another question, right? It'd be so easy if that's what he wanted to say, but instead it has to be this big thing about the way that the media divides us instead. The Republican Party is attempting to do a post-op, trying to figure out or post-mortem what the heck went wrong and what they need to change to have better chances in future elections. As Politico writes here, the Republican National Committee is launching a review of the party's performance in the midterm election and bringing on a team of outside advisors to help guide strategy as the GOP reckons with its disappointing performance in the election. The RNC is tapping nearly a dozen people to serve in what it's calling a Republican Party Advisory Council, a group that includes former Donald Trump White House advisor Kellyanne Conway, evangelical leader Tony Perkins, and a pair of Senate candidates who ran this year. Separately, the committee is starting what senior Republicans are describing as a review of the party's mechanics during the midterms, which is being led by RNC members. The RNC is expected to publish the findings sometime during the first half of 2023. You know what this reminds me of? After the 2012 election, if I'm not mistaken, the Republican Party did something like this, and they realized that the way they should improve is to reach more out and have a message that is more supported by minority voters. That was one of the points in the report they released, if I'm not mistaken. And they didn't do it, right? And that went out the window as Trump rose to prominence. But I think a similar thing will happen here. The Republican Party can try to go in whatever direction it wants, but depending on who becomes the figurehead of their party, that's really the only thing that matters, right? Next story, Truth Social seems to be sort of bleeding in followers and visitors of their site. From Mediaite, former President Donald Trump's social media website, Truth Social, reportedly has been losing hundreds of thousands of visitors per month over the past few months. There were more than 2.85 million visitors to Truth Social in October, according to the subscription service and outlet The Writing, which uses ComScore data. The Daily Beast's Confider newsletter on Monday flagged the numbers from The Writing. The 2.85 million is a decrease of 530,000 from the 3.38 million visitors to Truth Social in September. In August, there were 4.02 million visitors. Overall, between August and October, there was a decrease of almost 1.18 million visitors, which is significant because a site as young as Truth Social is needing growth. If you're that young, every month you want to be getting larger and larger and larger in how many visitors you have on your site. To be going the opposite direction is terrible. And all of the kerfluffles with Twitter should be helping Truth Social. But apparently it's just such an unpopular app that even one of their big competitors, the site they copied all of their stuff off of, doing poorly, still isn't helping them out as much as it should. So very sad for Truth Social and funny to watch. Trump has decided he will not push. I mean, we're already so close, but he has decided and followed through on not doing a rally for Herschel Walker in Georgia. As the New York Times writes, Donald J. Trump will not cross the Florida state line to campaign with Herschel Walker during the final week of the Georgia Senate runoff election after both camps decided the former president's appearance carried more political risks than rewards, campaign officials for the two Republicans said on Monday. Instead of holding one of his signature campaign rallies, Mr. Trump is planning a call with supporters in the state and will continue sending online fundraising pleas for Mr. Walker to people with knowledge of the planning said. The decision to keep Mr. Trump out of the spotlight was a response largely to the former president's political style and image, which can energize his core supporters but also motivate Democratic voters and turn off significant segments of moderate Republicans. This must be irking Trump so much. Holy smokes. To know that you can't go somewhere. I bet he doesn't think of it this way. He probably thinks they're so wrong. But the reason why they don't want him there is because he's unpopular among the people they need to win over and politically toxic. And for him to concede on that, I guess, or at least just convince himself into why it's okay for him not to go, and just he's been told too many times by those who he would be going to support, oh, please don't come, that he's not doing it is really, really interesting and shows you how politically toxic he really is. Then Herschel Walker gets asked about this revelation that Trump won't be going to rally for him, and here was his response.
Herschel, why is it that President Trump is not coming to have a rally in this last week before the final election day? And meanwhile, you got Obama campaigning with Warnock.
You know, President Trump has always been in my corner. He still is in my corner. And he's been doing other things for me. And everyone has been doing a lot of things for me. Tonight, we just got out of a fundraiser with Governor Kemp, with a lot of other people that was at the fundraiser. And, you know, President Trump is doing just as much for me. And I think right now the left is trying to highlight with President Obama coming down. But, you know, one of the things that they got to remember, President Obama is a celebrity. And that seemed to be where Raphael Warnock is getting his money from, celebrities. But he's not going to win this race. I told people before, he may outraise me in money, but I guarantee he won't get more votes than I'm going to get.
Okay. That didn't really answer the question at all, but just normal, incoherent Herschel Walker. So there it is. Trump, apparently in the mind of Herschel Walker, still doing a lot, even though he can't go and rally for him because nobody likes him. Next story, Madison Cawthorn did one of these weird speeches. You know, of course, he's on his way out. In January, he'll be gone. He lost his Republican primary, humiliated. And in one of his closing messages to the American people, he wanted to make clear that we need to be more masculine and stop being these metrosexuals.
Our young men are taught that weakness is strength, that delicacy is desirable, and that being a soft metrosexual is more valuable than training the mind, body, and soul. Social media has weakened us, siphoning our men of their will to fight, to rise in a noble manner, square their jaws, and charge once more into the breach of life to defend what they love. So on this precipice of disaster, I ask the young men of this nation a question. Will you sit behind a screen while the storied tales of your forefathers become myth? Or will you stand resolute against the dying light of America's golden age? Will you reclaim your masculinity? Will you become a man to be feared, to be respected, to be looked up to? Or will you let this nation's next generation be its final generation? Our young men are...
So metrosexual is a term that refers to liberal, kind of the stereotype of a liberal city straight guy who cares about fashion and is more, you know, oh, what's the word? I can't put my finger on. There's a perfect word for this, but it's supposed to slander people who are not what they portray as the perfect, strong, masculine warrior, and instead have a sense of class and, again, focus maybe on fashion and are liberal. Yeah, so that's that, I guess. Oh no. People are metrosexuals. That's horrible. And we need to be more feared and ready to fight in battle. Next story, a pro-life protester scaled a Ritz-Carlton and got arrested for it. I'll show you his video on Instagram in a second here, but this is him on the side of a Ritz-Carlton. And you'll see he's recording a video up there at one point. How this connects to pro-life activism, I don't really know. But then let me get pulled up for you this video he posted. Mediaite was highlighting this story, so let's get that pulled up.
Hey guys, I'm out here in Los Angeles today on the Ritz-Carlton, and today we're raising money for a mom named Olivia. She scheduled an abortion, and so Let Them Live decided to help her instead, and she's taking our help, and we need to help her pay her rent and help her fix her car so she can get to work and save her baby from abortion. Sometimes, you know, it's that easy that all they need is just a little bit of financial support, and they are willing to, you know, choose life. So thank you guys for all the support. Have a good day.
I don't know what is that? A fundraising move? Scaling a hotel to raise money for something? I don't know. President Biden tweeted out something, and I want to show it to you because it represents just how off the rails our country is that he would even feel the need to tweet this. Because he's exactly correct in what he's saying. But the fact that he felt the need to do it is just nuts. I just want to make a few things clear. The Holocaust happened, he says. Hitler was a demonic figure. And instead of giving it a platform, our political leaders should be calling out and rejecting anti-Semitism wherever it hides. Silence is complicity. The fact that the President of the United States, their team, whoever that came from, but his institution, felt the need to do that is wild, because I do think it was a wise choice because of all the crazy anti-Semitism, the Holocaust denial, all of these things we're seeing get so popular and common in public discourse, specifically with people like Kanye and Nick Fuentes and so many others. And it's really scary because some of the stuff that's been coming out, and you'll look in the comments and some people are agreeing with it. It's so bad. But I don't know what we're going to do. Kevin McCarthy attended Biden's state dinner with President Macron of France and got asked as he was walking in, hey, you're going to be sitting at the state dinner in the room with Hunter Biden, even though Congress is about to investigate him. What are your thoughts? How will that go?
Honorable Kevin McCarthy, House of Representatives, and Mrs. Roberta McCarthy.
I think the economy, making us energy independent. I think securing our borders, stopping fentanyl. I think holding government accountable. We haven't had much of that. I think the country in this last election wants to see a check and balance.
You're going to be at a dinner with Hunter Biden tonight. How does that feel, knowing that many people in your caucus want to investigate him?
Well, I'm at dinner with my mom, so I'm going to have a great time.
So he gets asked the second question. You're going to be at dinner with Hunter Biden. Your caucus is going to investigate him. How's that going to go? And his response is, well, I'm at dinner with my mom too. Okay. That answers the question, how? Strange. Good economic news came out about the job growth that we continue to see. It just does not seem to stop.
The job market just hasn't cracked. It's strong. Not only did we see that headline number stronger, if you look at wages, they keep rising. Up 0.6% on the month and 5.1% year over year. That is higher than Jay Powell wants. And he wants that number to get down to around 3%. We are a long ways off. And then I looked at the manufacturing. Remember, we got that weak manufacturing report yesterday? But guess what? We found out today in the jobs report that that sector added 14,000 manufacturing workers last month. So as you noted, a very easy translation on Wall Street. The job market just hasn't cracked.
So it is wild to see just the continuous growth we've seen of jobs, employment, and how that is allowing workers to have leverage and get better wages because they're in high demand. It's really hard to find workers in our current economy, which means workers have more power and can get better results for themselves, which is absolutely good. So we're just glad to see that is continuing. Last story we're going to discuss, Biden got asked about meeting with Putin or the Russia-Ukraine war. It ends up getting to him talking about the possibility of meeting with Putin. And I found this very interesting.
We hear that you will be talking to President Putin anytime soon. What is your approach? And as the Ukrainian war seems to be at a turning point, do you feel realistic that President Zelensky is putting a condition to open negotiations, and that is the return of Crimea to Ukraine?
Look, there's one way for this war to end, the rational way. Putin to pull out of Ukraine, number one. But it appears he's not going to do that. He's paying a very heavy price for failing to do it, but he's inflicting incredible carnage on the civilian population of Ukraine, bombing nurseries, hospitals, children's homes. It's sick what he's doing. But the fact of the matter is, I have no immediate plans to contact Mr. Putin. Mr. Putin is choose my words very carefully. I'm prepared to speak with Mr. Putin if, in fact, there is an interest in him deciding he's looking for a way to end the war. He hasn't done that yet. If that's the case, in consultation with my French and my NATO friends, I'll be happy to sit down with Putin to see what he has in mind.
So this highlights an important point that I've been trying to make myself a lot. To say the United States needs to prioritize diplomacy and ending the war, to say that is fine if you understand what's preventing that from happening is Putin. But what so many people, even well-intentioned progressives, do is make it seem like our support for Ukraine is wrong somehow because we're not pushing enough for an end to the war. But from the beginning, it was clear and it was said by the Biden administration that we would be open to ending this war, diplomacy. We want that if Putin is as well. But we can't break our back and stop supporting Ukraine for the purposes of trying to be more diplomatic or whatever your solution would be if we know that Putin has no interest in that. But if Putin actually has interest in ending the war, which he could do at any moment, what's the negotiation that's needed? He just needs to get out. But okay, if he demands a negotiation but is in good faith and actually wants to end the war, that's one thing. But that's not where we are right now. So right now, there's no need for Biden to be talking with Putin or coming up with some peace solution because the side that's causing all of this isn't interested in that. And that must be highlighted in all these discussions. Thank you all so much for watching today's bonus show. As a reminder, patreon.com/Luke Beasley, link in the description. That's where you get access to this every Saturday. Plus, even if you're someone who says, I don't need a whole show every Saturday, but I love what you do and want to support it, go ahead and do that as well. If you just want to feel like you're supporting independent media, my show specifically, it is what makes all of this possible and is greatly, greatly appreciated. But with all that being said, have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you on Monday.